The screeching tires and blaring sirens shattered the early morning calm of the small town. It was just after midnight, and the only people out were the two young toughs terrorizing the lone attendant at an all-night gas station in Madison, Wisconsin. They grabbed the attendant, shoving him against the counter, when suddenly a sleek black limousine pulled up. The back door swung open, and out jumped a large man in a tracksuit and oversized sunglasses. He moved with an unexpected agility, taking a karate stance as he strode toward the bullies. For a moment the young toughs froze, trying to make sense of the scene. Then they saw his face. It was Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, the man whose music had defined a generation. Elvis, who had just arrived in Madison for a concert that evening, had seen the commotion and decided to intervene. The bullies backed away, their bravado melting away in the presence of a celebrity. The gas station attendant, equally stunned, could hardly believe his eyes. Police officers from Elvis's security detail quickly took control of the situation. But Elvis didn't just leave. He stayed, talking to the officers, the attendant, and even the bullies. He shook hands with everyone and posed for pictures, all the while exuding a calm and reassuring presence. This wasn't the first time Elvis had found himself in such a situation. Despite his fame, he often felt a deep connection to the ordinary people he met. Growing up in Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis knew what it was like to struggle. His family, like many in the South during the Great Depression, barely made ends meet. His father, Vernon, worked odd jobs, and his mother, Gladys, did everything she could to keep the family afloat. Elvis was their only child, and they doted on him, instilling in him a sense of pride and ambition. In 1948, when Elvis was 13, his family moved to Memphis, Tennessee in search of better opportunities. Memphis was a bustling city, full of life and music. It was here that Elvis first discovered the sounds that would shape his destiny. He listened to the blues of B.B. King and the country tunes of Hank Williams, blending them into a style that was uniquely his own. He began performing at local clubs and radio stations, and it wasn't long before his raw talent and magnetic stage presence caught the attention of Sun Records owner Sam Phillips. Phillips saw something special in Elvis, a raw energy and charisma that could revolutionize the music industry. In 1954, Elvis recorded his first single, That's All Right, and the rest, as they say, is history. His music quickly gained a massive following, and he became a sensation, known for his energetic performances and controversial dance moves. Critics called him a pelvis and a hillbilly cat, but his fans loved him for his authenticity and passion. As Elvis's fame grew, so did the pressures of celebrity. He moved to a lavish mansion, Graceland, and surrounded himself with a loyal group of friends and bodyguards. But the more famous he became, the more he felt the need to protect his privacy. He rarely went out in public, and when he did, it was usually late at night when the streets were quiet. Yet even in his reclusive moments, Elvis never forgot his roots or the values his parents had taught him. That night in Madison, as he stood by the gas station, Elvis felt a sense of purpose. He wasn't just a famous singer. He was a person who cared about others. For a brief moment, he was able to step out of the limelight and be the hero he always wanted to be. But the world of fame and fortune was complex, and the pressures it brought would soon test his resolve in ways he never could have imagined. Elvis Presley's early life was a blend of hardship and the rich cultural tapestry of the South. Born in a small, two-room shotgun shack in East Tupelo, Mississippi, on January 8, 1935, Elvis was the second of twins. His brother, Jesse Guerin, was stillborn, and this early loss would have a profound impact on Elvis's life and beliefs. His parents, Vernon and Gladys Presley, were young and struggling, but they were part of a close-knit community that provided support and a sense of belonging. Tupelo in the early 1930s was a town on the rise. It had grown from a dusty crossroads into a bustling commercial center, thanks to its strategic location at the junction of two railway lines. The town had several factories and mills, and by the 1930s, it boasted modern amenities like electricity, thanks to the Tennessee Valley Authority. Despite these advancements, life in Tupelo was still tough, especially for the poor and working class. Wages were low, and jobs were scarce, particularly during the Great Depression. Many people, including Elvis's family, lived in squalid conditions, often in shacks without basic utilities. Elvis's parents, Vernon and Gladys, were both from families that had lived in the region for generations. Vernon, a quiet and hardworking man, often took on various jobs to make ends meet, including sharecropping and laboring. Gladys, known for her beauty and vivacity, had a strong and enterprising spirit. She worked at the Tupelo garment plant until her pregnancy forced her to stop. The couple's marriage was a mix of love and practicality, and they relied heavily on their extended family for support. The cultural landscape of Tupelo was shaped by its history. The town had a strong sense of community, rooted in the traditions of the South. Religion played a central role, and the Presleys attended an Assembly of God church, where Elvis was exposed to the powerful and emotional gospel music that would later influence his style. The town was also a melting pot of musical influences, with blues, country, and gospel music blending together in a way that was unique to the region. Despite the challenges, Elvis's childhood was filled with moments of joy and discovery. He was encouraged to explore his creative side, and his parents, though poor, did their best to provide a nurturing environment. They instilled in him a deep sense of family and community, values that would stay with him throughout his life. The hardships they faced also gave Elvis a resilience and a drive to succeed, which would become defining traits in his later career. As Elvis grew older, the family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where the post-war boom was creating new opportunities. Memphis was a vibrant city, known for its music scene, and it was here that Elvis began to develop his unique sound. The city's diverse musical landscape, from the blues of Beale Street to the country music of the Grand Ole Opry, provided a rich backdrop for Elvis to explore different genres and styles. His exposure to this cultural melting pot, combined with the values and experiences of his early life in Tupelo, shaped him into the artist the world would come to know. Elvis's success in the 1950s was a testament to his talent and his ability to connect with a broad audience. His music, which blended elements of rock and roll, country, and gospel, resonated with listeners of all backgrounds. However, as the 1960s and 1970s brought new social and cultural changes, Elvis's commitment to his roots and his broad musical repertoire sometimes made it difficult for him to keep up with the evolving tastes of younger audiences. Nonetheless, his unique sensibility and the deep connections he had formed with his fans ensured that he remained a beloved figure in the music world. Elvis Presley's journey from a humble shack in East Tupelo to becoming the king of rock and roll is a story of talent, perseverance, and the enduring power of music. His early years, marked by both struggle and community, laid the foundation for a life that would inspire generations. The Presleys were a tight-knit family. Elvis, being the only child, always had the undivided attention of his parents. They lived in a community where family was everything, and the Presleys were surrounded by relatives who helped out whenever times got tough. Vernon, Elvis's dad, often had to leave town to find work, especially in the late 1930s and early 1940s. During these hard times, the church became the center of their lives. The Presleys and their relatives, the Smiths, were Pentecostals, a type of religious group known for their lively and emotional services. They believed in the power of the Holy Spirit and often spoke in tongues, which made their faith both expressive and deeply personal. Pentecostalism was a faith that welcomed everyone, regardless of their social status. It was a place where poor families like the Presleys could find hope and comfort. The religious revivals in Tupelo, where the Presleys lived, were especially important. These events brought together people from all walks of life, and even though the Presleys attended a mostly white church, the revivals often included African Americans as well. This exposure to different cultures and beliefs had a lasting impact on Elvis, who grew up in a world where the lines between black and white were often blurred. In November 1937, the Presleys faced a major crisis when Vernon, along with Gladys's brother Travis, was arrested for altering a check to buy a hog. They couldn't afford bail, so Vernon and Travis had to stay in jail until their trial in May 1938. Both were found guilty and sentenced to 3 years in Parchman Prison, a notorious place. Vernon was eventually released in early 1939, but his absence was deeply felt by Gladys and Elvis. Without Vernon's income, the family lost their home and had to move in with relatives. Elvis and Gladys visited Vernon at Parchman several times, enduring long bus rides to spend a few hours with him. This experience was traumatic for Elvis, and brought him and his mother even closer together. When Vernon returned from prison, he found work with the Works Progress Administration, a government program that provided jobs during the Great Depression. The steady income allowed the family to rent their own place, and even buy an old truck. As the United States prepared for World War II, Vernon found better-paying jobs that required him to leave town during the week. He worked in places like Memphis, Birmingham, and Mobile, which opened his eyes to new opportunities. In 1943, the family moved to the Gulf Coast for a job in a shipyard, but they returned to Tupelo after just a month because they missed home. Back in Tupelo, Vernon got a job as a deliveryman for a local grocery store. The family's financial situation improved, and they were able to buy a small house on Berry Street. These were relatively good years for the Presleys. With Vernon working close to home and Gladys doing odd jobs, they managed to provide for Elvis, who was their pride and joy. They spoiled him and encouraged him to feel special, always making sure he had decent clothes and a few toys. Despite their limited means, they raised him to be polite and respectful, and he made a good impression on teachers and other authority figures. Elvis's love for music began at church, where he learned to sing and appreciate the powerful sounds of gospel music. He also became a fan of country music, which was popular among the working-class whites in Tupelo. Inspired by local musicians like Mississippi Slim, who had his own radio show, Elvis started playing guitar at a young age. He would often take his guitar to school and play for his friends, even though some of the tougher kids sometimes cut his strings. Despite these challenges, music became a refuge for Elvis, offering him moments of joy and a sense of accomplishment. In 1945, at the age of 10, Elvis won 5th prize in a children's talent show at the Mississippi Algebra Fair and Dairy Show. He sang Old Shep, a Red Foley ballad, a cappella, and impressed the judges. A few months later, on his 11th birthday, he received a guitar as a gift and quickly learned to play, getting tips from relatives and Mississippi Slim. By the time he was in 7th grade, Elvis was taking his guitar everywhere, even to school, where he would play for his classmates during recess and lunch. However, music couldn't shield the family from their financial struggles. By 1946, the wartime labor shortage had ended, and Vernon found it harder to supplement his income. The family lost their house again and moved to a rental close to Shake Rag, a predominantly black neighborhood. Living so close to African American communities deepened Elvis's exposure to black culture, particularly the music from the churches and juke joints. This experience made him more tolerant and sympathetic toward African Americans, which set him apart from many of his white contemporaries. By November 1948, the Presleys decided to move to Memphis, a booming city with better job opportunities. Vernon and Gladys sold their furniture, packed their belongings, and set out for a new life. Memphis was a place where they hoped to find more stable work, and where Elvis could continue his education. The city was a cultural melting pot, with a vibrant manufacturing sector and a growing population. It offered a modern lifestyle with amenities and attractions that were far beyond what Tupelo could provide. Memphis was also a cultural crossroads, where people from all over the Mississippi Valley and surrounding areas came to work and live. The city's industrial growth meant higher incomes and more free time for working-class families. This free time allowed people to enjoy the city's many restaurants, nightclubs, bars, and theaters. For African Americans, Beale Street was the heart of the city's nightlife, where rhythm and blues music filled the air. Despite the city's segregation, many African Americans found Memphis to be a significant improvement over the rural areas they had left behind. For the Presleys, moving to Memphis was a step toward a better future, and for Elvis, it would soon become the place where he would start to shape his destiny as a musician. The Presleys settled into a rooming house close to where Gladys's brother Travis and his family had also moved. Soon, Gladys found a job as a sewing machine operator, and Vernon became a laborer at a munitions factory. They enrolled Elvis in the 8th grade at Humes High School. On his first day, Elvis felt so overwhelmed by the big classes and the bustling activity that he came home after less than an hour, feeling nervous and scared. But he quickly got used to his new school and made friends. Tired of living in a tiny, cramped room, the Presleys applied for public housing. After a 4-month wait and an interview with a social worker, They moved into Lauderdale Courts, a nice all-white apartment complex. For $35 a month, they got a bigger place with 2 bedrooms, a living room, and their own bathroom. Gladys was thrilled. The apartment became a gathering spot for the Presleys and Smiths, who had also moved to Memphis. Gladys loved hosting everyone, always laughing and being a good host. The Courts gave the Presleys a new community of young families, all trying to make the most of life in Memphis. The location was perfect, with Main Street just 2 blocks away, full of stores and movie theaters. The city's downtown was within walking distance, and Beale Street, with its vibrant music scene, was also easy to reach. This new neighborhood was exciting, and teenagers like Elvis were eager to explore it. Despite Gladys's efforts to keep Elvis on a tight leash, Memphis offered too many attractions. Elvis made friends with other teenagers in the Courts, and they played football, explored downtown, and went to the movies. One of their favorite spots was Beale Street, where Elvis loved to window shop at the Lansky Brothers men's store, admiring the flashy outfits that many musicians wore. Life at the Courts was good for the Presleys. Vernon found a new job close to home, and in 1951, Gladys became a nurse's aide at a nearby hospital. Elvis started working too, first as a movie theater usher, and later as a drill press operator at a munitions plant. In 1953, they had to move out of the Courts because their income was too high for public housing. They rented an apartment across the street so Elvis could stay close to his friends. Elvis's love for music grew in Memphis. He discovered that some of the boys in the Courts played instruments, and he joined their jam sessions. He learned new songs and guitar techniques from the older guys. The radio was a big part of his musical journey. Memphis stations played a mix of gospel, country, and pop music. But Elvis was especially drawn to the R&B and gospel shows on stations like WDIA and WHBQ. Dewey Phillips's late-night show, Red, Hot, and Blue, was a favorite, where he could listen to the latest rhythm and blues. Elvis frequented local record stores, like Poplar Tunes and Charlie's. Charlie's was his favorite, a small store where the owner let him hang out and listen to records, even if he couldn't afford to buy them. This is where Elvis really got into R&B and developed a deep knowledge of the genre. He still loved gospel, which was a big part of family gatherings, and he enjoyed the all-night gospel singings at Ellis Auditorium, where professional quartets performed. Elvis's musical tastes were unique. While many of his white peers stuck to country, gospel, and mainstream pop, Elvis was into a wide range of music, including R&B. This was unusual for the time, and it set him apart. His interest in black music might have been part of a broader trend among working-class white teens, who were drawn to R&B for its energy and the way it celebrated freedom and good times. As Elvis became more comfortable in Memphis, he started to assert himself. With both parents working and Elvis earning his own money, he had more freedom. He played music with friends, went to the movies, and spent time at record stores. He also started to develop his own style. Inspired by truck drivers, his favorite comic book hero, Captain Marvel, Jr., and Hollywood stars like Tony Curtis, Elvis grew sideburns and styled his hair into a pompadour. He bought flashy clothes, often from Lansky's, and his new look was a mix of influences, both black and white. Elvis's parents might have been a bit worried about his new look, but they didn't pressure him to change. His uncle and aunt, Travis and Lorraine Smith, were more critical, warning that his style could get him into trouble. Despite the risks, Elvis's parents loved him unconditionally, and their support gave him the confidence to be himself. Living in Memphis and experiencing the city's vibrant culture, Elvis found his place and his unique style. He was about to step into a new chapter of his life, one that would change everything. Elvis's high school days at Hume's were a mix of challenges and growth. He stood out, not just for his music, but for his distinctive look. His hair, combed and styled in a way that was far from the standard crew cut, often drew the ire of the jocks who ruled the school. Red West, one of Elvis's closest friends, recalled, "It was that hair. It got him into all kinds of trouble. If he had a regular haircut like the rest of us, he probably wouldn't have been bothered. But I guess the other kids thought he was trying to show off or something." Despite the teasing and threats, Elvis refused to back down. He stuck to his unique style, determined to be himself. Elvis wasn't a top athlete or an honor roll student, but he had a warm and unassuming personality that won over many of his classmates. His teachers respected him for his politeness and obedience, even if his grades were average. After graduation, his demeanor and family values impressed potential employers like Gladys Tipler, who hired him as a deliverman despite warnings about his appearance. During his senior year, Elvis's reputation began to shift. He participated in the school's talent show, the annual Minstrel, where he sang and played the guitar. His performance was a surprise to many, and it marked the beginning of his recognition as a musician. He started bringing his guitar to school events and picnics, where he would sing ballads and draw a crowd. The Humes yearbook even listed him among the seniors who might become singing hillbillies, a nod to his musical potential. After graduating in June 1953, Elvis faced the realities of adulthood. He had previously worked a full-time job at a furniture factory, but had to quit because his parents were concerned about his school performance. With his father's back problems worsening, the family needed Elvis to provide a steady income. He applied for jobs and interviewed at a state employment office, expressing an interest in becoming a machinist. Despite some rejections, he eventually landed a job at Precision Tool, but found the work and the teasing about his hair unbearable. He quit in March 1954 and soon found a better opportunity with Crown Electric, where he delivered electrical supplies. The Tiplers, his employers, encouraged him to go to night school to become an electrician, a path that could lead to a stable and respectable career. Elvis's personal life also changed during this period. He met Dixie Locke, a sophomore at a rival high school, at a church function. They shared a love for gospel music and often attended church events together. Dixie's family approved of Elvis, impressed by his modesty and commitment to a wholesome Christian life. They dated, went roller skating, and enjoyed picnics. Elvis would often bring his guitar and serenade her, and his singing would sometimes draw the attention of others, who were captivated by his presence. Elvis and Dixie talked about getting married after she graduated in 1956. During this time, Elvis confided in her about his dream of becoming a professional musician. Though it seemed like a distant goal, given his full-time job and the prospect of night school, he began to take it more seriously. His performance at the Humes talent show had given him a boost, and he started looking for ways to make his dream a reality. In the summer of 1953, Elvis visited the Memphis recording service, a small studio where anyone could record an acetate for a modest fee. He claimed he wanted to make a record for his mother's birthday, but the timing and location suggest a more ambitious goal. Elvis was trying to get noticed by Sam Phillips, the owner of the studio and the fledgling Sun Records. Phillips, a visionary from rural Alabama, had a deep appreciation for black music and culture. He had opened his studio to record a wide range of black music, from blues to R&B, and was determined to bring this music to a wider audience. Phillips's studio was a place where unique talent could be discovered. Elvis's visit was a calculated move to get noticed, and it would eventually lead to his big break. Phillips, who was known for his dedication to uncovering raw, unique talent, would soon recognize something special in Elvis. This visit to the Memphis recording service was the first step in a journey that would transform Elvis Presley from a shy, unconventional high school student into one of the most iconic musicians of the 20th century. By 1953, Sam Phillips was convinced that black R&B music had a special appeal for white teenagers. He believed that the racial barriers in music would soon break down, and white Southerners would start to appreciate the rich heritage of black music. This, he thought, would lead to a broader understanding and reconciliation between the races. Sam had noticed that more young whites were listening to R&B on radio shows like Dewey Phillips's Red, Hot, and Blue, and buying race records. However, he also knew that the white South was deeply racist, and many were resistant to any changes that might challenge the status quo. Despite these challenges, Sam remained optimistic. He believed that the influence of black music on white country music was already there, even if few whites realized it. To bridge this gap, Sam thought he needed a white musician who could capture the Negro sound and feel, and make it appealing to a wider audience. He was certain that if he found such a person, he could not only make a lot of money, but also help transform the South. In July 1953, a young man named Elvis Presley walked into the Memphis recording service. Elvis was shy and polite, and he asked Marion Kasker, Sam's assistant, if he could record an acetate. When it was his turn, he sang 2 ballads, My Happiness and That's When Your Heartaches Begin. His singing was decent, but nothing spectacular. Sam thought Elvis was interesting and told him they might call him back. He wrote down Elvis's name and address, noting that he was a good ballad singer. Months passed and Sam never called. Elvis kept coming back, hoping for a chance. In January 1954, he recorded another acetate, but still nothing happened. Elvis tried out for a gospel quartet called the Songfellows, but was rejected. He was also turned down by a country band led by Eddie Bond. These rejections were tough for Elvis, but he didn't give up. By June 1954, Elvis's hopes for a music career were fading. He was working as a truck driver for Crown Electric and spending his free time with his girlfriend, Dixie. His life seemed to be settling into a routine, but deep down, he still dreamed of becoming a musician. Then, on June 26, 1954, Marion Kasker called Elvis and asked him to come to the studio. Sam Phillips had remembered the boy with the sideburns and wanted to see what he could do. They worked on a ballad called Without You, but Elvis struggled. Sam decided to try something different and called Scotty Moore, a local guitarist, to see if he could help. On July 3rd, Scotty and Bill Black, a bassist, met Elvis at Scotty's house. Elvis's appearance in a black shirt, pink pants, and white shoes was striking, but Scotty and his wife quickly saw that he was shy and insecure. They played for a while, but Scotty wasn't sure if Elvis was anything special. He reported back to Sam, but Sam wasn't ready to give up on Elvis. The next day, on July 5th, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill went to the studio. They worked on 2 ballads, but after several hours they hit a wall. Everyone was tired and frustrated. Sam called a break, and as Scotty and Bill relaxed, Elvis started singing and moving around the room. Bill joined in, and Scotty started playing with them. Sam heard the energy and excitement in their music, and asked them to play it again. That moment was the beginning of something special. Sam saw the potential in Elvis, and he knew he had found the voice that could help bridge the gap between white and black music. The rest, as they say, is history. Sam was surprised when Elvis Presley walked into Sun Studios and started singing Arthur Crudup's That's All Right. Sam had known Elvis from a few auditions, but the young singer had never shown any interest in rhythm and blues. Sam was taken aback, not just by the song choice, but by how Elvis sang it. There was a playful energy and a deep appreciation for the music that Sam hadn't heard in any of Elvis's previous performances. It was clear that Elvis had a genuine love for black music, just like Sam did. They worked on the song again and again, with Sam giving instructions from the control booth and the musicians playing with enthusiasm. Elvis finally found his voice, singing with a natural and unaffected style. When they played the tape back, everyone was shocked. It was a blues song, but it sounded like nothing they had ever heard before. Scotty, one of Elvis's bandmates, said, "We thought it was exciting, but what was it? It wasn't country, and it wasn't the kind of music white musicians were supposed to play." They joked nervously that people might run them out of town when they heard it, but Sam was over the moon. This was the sound he had been searching for, a sound that could bridge the gap between white and black music and bring people together. The next evening they got back to work, but it felt a bit anticlimactic after the magic of the previous night. Sam was already thinking about how to promote the song. He knew it was a unique blend of blues and country, and he wanted to make sure it reached as many people as possible. He decided to take it to Dewey Phillips, a popular DJ on WHBQ's R&B show, Red, Hot, and Blue. Dewey and Sam were good friends, and Dewey always gave Sun Recordings airtime. Dewey stopped by the studio after his show, and Sam played him the tape of That's All Right. Dewey was stunned by the sound, but he was unsure if he should play it on the air. He worried about alienating his largely black audience of R&B fans. By the next morning, though, Dewey had made up his mind. He called Sam and asked for 2 acetates, which Sam delivered to the radio station. Sam then called Elvis and told him the exciting news. That evening, Elvis set the radio to WHBQ and told his parents not to change the station. But he was too nervous to listen, so he went to the movies instead. His parents and grandmother, who lived with them, stayed close to the radio, When Dewey's show began, they waited anxiously. After a bit of talk and other songs, Dewey announced he had a new record from Sun that he was sure would be a hit. He played "That's All Right," and the response was immediate. The phone lines lit up with calls from people who loved the song. Dewey played it over and over, and the excitement grew. By midnight, no one knew how many times he had played it, but it didn't matter. People, both black and white, had heard the music and loved it. As the calls came in, Dewey tried to find Elvis. He called the Presley home and learned that Elvis was at the movies. Dewey sent Elvis's parents to the theater to fetch him. When they found him, Elvis was terrified. He had gone to the movies to avoid the pressure, but now he was being dragged into the spotlight. Dewey put him at ease with casual conversation, but he turned on the microphone without warning, and the interview was over before Elvis knew it. During the interview, Dewey asked where Elvis had gone to high school, knowing that the answer Humes would reveal to listeners that the singer was white. By the end of the evening, many Memphians knew that the breakthrough they had heard was not just a great song, but a significant moment in the fight against racial segregation. The next day, they went back into the studio to record a B-side for the single. They tried a few ballads, but things didn't click until Bill Black started playing "Blue Moon of Kentucky" in a faster tempo. Sam saw the potential and pushed them to refine their sound. The result was a rousing, up-tempo version of the classic. Sam's determination to create something entirely new was crucial, and Elvis came to appreciate his producer's vision. They were not just making music, they were making history. The single, with "That's All Right" as the A-side and "Blue Moon of Kentucky" as the B-side, was released a few days later. It quickly became a hit in Memphis, and sales outpaced the manufacturing plant's ability to produce it. By the end of October, over 6,000 copies had been sold in the city. People who knew Elvis from school or the neighborhood recognized his voice on the radio, and the shy boy they had barely noticed was now a local star. Sam knew that success in Memphis was just the beginning. He wanted to get Elvis's music out to the rest of the South, but it was a tough sell. Many radio DJ, especially those on country stations, were hostile to Presley's sound. They found it too black, and were outraged by his version of "Blue Moon of Kentucky." Sam's belief was that only live performances could overcome the resistance. He arranged for Elvis to perform at the Bon Air nightclub as an opening act for the Starlight Wranglers. Despite his nerves, Elvis's stage presence was impressive, and Phillips saw the potential for building a following. Bob Neal, a local DJ, agreed to put Elvis on the bill of a hillbilly hoedown at the Overton Park Shell. The headliner was Slim Whitman, and the other acts were country performers. Elvis, Scotty, and Bill rehearsed and played at the Bon Air to prepare. Marion Kasker, Sam's assistant, took Elvis to the newspaper for his first interview, emphasizing that his music appealed to everyone. The day of the show, Elvis was terrified. The crowd was much larger and all white, and he wasn't sure how they would react. But when he started playing "That's All Right," he began to move with the music, bouncing around the stage and jiggling his knees. The crowd was surprised, but they loved it. As they played "Blue Moon of Kentucky," Elvis gained confidence and the crowd went wild. He realized that the wilder he got, the wilder the crowd became. After his performance, even Slim Whitman was impressed. Elvis's live performances were a game changer. They showed that his music could connect with people in a way that recordings alone couldn't. Sam knew that if he could get Elvis out on the road, they could build a following that would change the face of music in the South. Elvis Presley's path from a young, unknown singer to a regional star and local celebrity in Memphis was a whirlwind of performances, recordings, and growing fame. After his triumphant shows at Overton Park, Elvis and his band, including Scotty Moore and Bill Black, moved on to play at the Eagle's Nest, a popular Memphis nightclub. The club's manager, seeing the growing crowds, hired them to play weekends for the rest of the fall. These gigs were more than just performances. They were crucial moments where Elvis, Scotty, and Bill honed their skills, added new songs to their repertoire, and developed the unique style that set them apart from other musicians. Elvis's flamboyant dress, often in pink and black, and his exuberant stage presence started to become his trademark. This new identity, combined with his music, gave him an air of mystery and made him stand out. People began to notice, and disc jockeys and concert promoters struggled to categorize him. The nickname the Hillbilly Cat stuck, highlighting the blend of country and rhythm and blues that defined his music. Sales of Elvis's first record were strong, and both songs received a lot of airplay on country and R&B radio stations in Memphis. The record even caught the attention of Billboard's editor Paul Ackerman, who praised Elvis as a strong new talent. This recognition was crucial for Sam Phillips, who was trying to get Elvis's music played on radio stations outside Memphis. Despite some resistance, Phillips persisted, and Elvis's popularity continued to grow. In early September, Elvis played at the grand opening of a suburban shopping center. Hundreds of white teenagers who had heard him on the radio showed up to see him perform on the back of a flatbed truck. The crowd's enthusiasm was a clear sign that Elvis and his band had found something special, a new sound that appealed to a younger, more adventurous audience. Sam Phillips, always looking for ways to boost Elvis's exposure, arranged for him to perform on the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. Although the audience's response was lukewarm and they weren't invited back, Phillips was undeterred. He knew that as long as people couldn't ignore Elvis, they would eventually come around. A few weeks later, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill were invited to play on the Louisiana Hayride, a weekly radio show from Shreveport. This was a more suitable venue for them, and they were warmly received. The Hayride provided them with regular gigs and a platform to reach a wider audience across the Deep South. With the help of Bob Neal, a Memphis DJ and promoter, they began to book more shows in towns and small cities throughout the region, often in high school auditoriums and other venues where younger fans could attend. By early 1955, Bob Neal became the band's official manager, and their gigs became more frequent. They were attracting large, enthusiastic crowds, and more white disc jockeys started playing their records. Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys were also appearing on package tours with other country performers, which helped them gain legitimacy and attract new fans. During this time, Elvis, Scotty, and Bill returned to the Sun Studios in Memphis to record new material. Their second single, featuring Good Rockin' Tonight and I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine, was a hit and became a staple of their live act. Their third single, with Milk Cow Blues Boogie and You're a Heartbreaker, further solidified their unique sound. Each new single received more airplay than the last, and while their sales were strong, the limited distribution of Sun Records kept them from reaching the top of the charts. Despite this, the importance of their music cannot be overstated. Elvis's recordings at Sun were groundbreaking, blending country and R&B in a way that was both familiar and entirely new. Songs like That's All Right, Baby Let's Play House, and Mystery Train were original and innovative, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in popular music. Elvis's performances were also marked by an energy and a spirit that set him apart from other country performers. He reworked R&B songs with humor and flair, making them his own and helping to create a new genre, rockabilly. Elvis's influence extended beyond his own music. He inspired other young musicians like Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison, who followed in his footsteps and recorded at Sun Records. Elvis's expressive style, bold fashion, and fusion of country and R&B established a new template for white performers, offering an alternative to the more conservative styles of the time. Sam Phillips played a crucial role in Elvis's success. He spent countless hours in the studio, encouraging Elvis, Scotty, and Bill to experiment and develop their unique sound. Phillips's patience and vision helped them grow as musicians and gain the confidence they needed to perform live. Phillips also recognized Elvis's insecurity as a strength, seeing the innocence and authenticity it brought to his music. By February 1955, Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys were regulars on the Louisiana Hayride and had quit their day jobs to focus on music full-time. They were earning $1,000 a week, which they split 50 to 25-25. This success allowed them to accept gigs farther from Memphis and to devote more time to recording. Their hard work and dedication were paying off, and Elvis was well on his way to becoming a national icon. Elvis Presley's journey from a young singer in Memphis to a regional star was a testament to his talent, the vision of Sam Phillips, and the support of his bandmates. Their music was a blend of old and new, and it captivated audiences, setting the stage for the rock and roll revolution that would soon sweep the nation.